Welcome back in, everybody. We are outdoors today. We're on the small board. This is the 21 off season. It is the Kansas City Chiefs, and today we're talking about the offensive line. There is so much to talk about with Kansas City's offensive line. I'm going to let most of the focus today be on moving forward and productively looking at the 21 season, the 21 off season, and what you had to look forward to as fans and as an organization. We won't talk too much about the Super Bowl today, I don't think, or last season. We may refer to it a little bit. For the most part, we're looking ahead at what you've got to look forward to for 2021. I've got the top 12 guys on the board here. This isn't everybody, but this is the top 12 guys I think who need the most talked about for Kansas City. Right at the start, Mitchell Schwartz. He'll be making $10 million cap hit next year, assuming he's healthy, and I have every reason to believe that he will be. Assuming he's healthy, I think you're going to see the same Mitchell Schwartz that we've always seen. He was having another awesome season before he got injured in week 6, and I think you have every right to expect that he's going to be doing excellent in 2021 as well. $10 million cap hit for him. Eric Fisher at the other tackle spot at left tackle. Again, assuming, injuries always hit these guys different. It's one thing to Google, the expected rehab time for a specific injury, but that all depends on the depth of that injury, the particular individual, and how much they're willing to work on recovery, and the age of the person. It all depends, but I have every reason to believe that both of these guys, Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz, will be back at full strength for 2021, and they'll be making a lot of money. Eric Fisher's cap hit will be $15 million for 2021. So between those two guys right there, you have $25 million put together in both tackles. And that's not a bad deal for either tackle, but you're also not getting a real steal at either spot. Mitchell Schwartz is just an insane performer at right tackle. Eric Fisher is not quite as good at the left tackle spot, but he's good enough to be considered a franchise left tackle, and he is so consistent year in and year out. So you're getting what you're paying for at both of those tackle spots, but you are paying for it. Okay, so it's $25 million there for just those two players out of what will probably be $185 million cap for this season. So that's your tackle spots. Now, interestingly enough, and I only include this for your information, if you're looking around for ways to save money in 2021, this is two of the three best spots on the team right here. Both of these guys' contract is up really soon. I think they're both up in 2022. And so if you were looking for a way to save cap space, trading or releasing one of these two guys right here would be two of the three easiest ways to do it if you don't want to restructure. And we had a separate video where we talked all about the restructuring and the ups and downs and the trade-offs that there are with restructuring. But if you don't want to get into the restructuring area any more than you have to, this is one of the two easiest ways right here to get some cap space. It's simply by trading or releasing, and it lets you out of these two big cap numbers. Now, I don't think Kansas City is going to do that at all. I don't even know that I would advise doing that because they really don't have anybody proven back there at the tackle spot. So I'm not advising that, and I don't expect Kansas City to do that. But just so you know that the options are out there, the dead cap hit for both of these players is incredibly low. I think it's $1 million for Schwartz and maybe $3-4 million for Eric Fisher. So that would be, but I don't think that's going to happen at all. So those are your bookend tackles right there, left and right tackle. After that, the next guy who's making the most money, and really the only guy who's making any money as of this moment for 2021, is Dr. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. Okay, if that's not a Southern guy ripping apart a French-Canadian name, I don't know what is. But the good doctor is scheduled to have a $5 million cap hit. And I have a ton of respect for the doc on every level. As a football player, as a human, as a doctor, he is a tremendous person all the way around. But as a fan and as an organization, I think we have a right to question what version of the doctor we're going to get in 2021 if indeed he does come back. And that's why I've got the U there for the unknown, because the last time we saw him was in 2019. And while he was contributing and he was fighting, and he wasn't the best version of himself even in 2019. You dial it back to 2018, and he had a pretty good season in 18, but that still wasn't his best year. The best year we've ever seen the doctor play, you have to go all the way back to 2017 for him. since the last time that we saw him have an exceptional season where you're like, yes, that's the starter, that's the guy we want playing guard, and that's the guy who's locked down that starting spot. So in 18 and 19, we actually saw his performance go down just a little bit, and some of that's inconsistency, some of that's injury related, just nagging injuries. So there's it's not just that simple. But then of course we didn't see him at all in 2020. So we have every right to question what version of him we're going to see. But if you want to pencil him in as one of the guard starters, at least heading into the off season, you can do that, and at least you know you've got somebody there who is smart, who works hard, and who does fight, and who has performed on an NFL field before at a pretty good level, even if we're not sure which version of him we're going to get in 2021. Now, I know some of you may be saying, well, could we just release him? Could we just save the $5 million cap space? And the answer to that, unfortunately, is no. Through a weird twist of the contract and through the COVID opt-out, the dead cap hit for the Doctor is actually $7 million, which is even more than the $5 million that he would be owed. So even if you used a PJ1 cut on him, a P61 cut, and split that up over 2 seasons, you really wouldn't be saving anything at all, and you'd only be saving a couple of $1 million in 2021 by itself. So really, he's on the team. If he wants to be back this year, he's on the team, and the Kansas City's going to be paying him pretty much no matter what. So he's there, and at least tentatively, until somebody else takes that job from him, you could pencil him in as one of the guard starters. Allegretti, also coming in at guard. This is a guy who's interesting. He didn't start last season in 21, of course. Osemele actually started at left guard through a series of injuries in week 6 and 7, I think it was. Allegretti finally gets to be the starter. I think it's in week 8 or week 9, and he never leaves. He actually was very consistent, had an excellent season, very balanced, very flexible, very fluid, had an excellent year. And if you want to pencil Allegretti in here as the starter at left guard, I think you have every right to do that. Now, I always throw this in because we see it with all kinds of football players at all different positions and even at all different ages, is that they are not consistent from one year to the next. They may have a good season and then a not so good season. They are not machines and they're not robots. So just because Allegretti had an excellent season in 2020 doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to do that in 21. He might actually even be better, and that's what you hope for, but you've also got that chance. You know, we saw this from Wiley, who had an excellent season in 2019, contributed heavily in 2020, but just wasn't as good as he was in 2019. We've seen that from other guys at other positions. There's about probably a plus or minus 10% on Allegretti getting better because he's young, or worse because, well, teams are starting to figure out what he can and can't do, and they're maneuvering around that. So keep that in mind, but I think it's very safe if you want to pencil Allegretti in at left guard. I think it's very safe to do that. I have no problem with that, and that's what I would be doing if I was Kansas City. He's only making, I think, $890,000, so the price is right on him. It's an excellent cap hit right there for him. You take these 4 guys together. There's a lot of cap hit right here at the 2 tackle spots. But you take these 4 guys together, and now you start to have $31 million in 4 starter spots if you want those 4 guys to be the starters. After that, you have Rankin. He's the tackle that they've got for, I think, 2 seasons now. He's only making, I think it's $900,000, $950,000, something like that. So you've got him back there at tackle. What do you really have in Rankin? I don't know that we've seen enough of him on an NFL field to really say, and maybe that in itself means that Rankin is not really good enough to ever be a starter. I don't know. But you'll have Rankin there at backup tackle, and the price is right on him. You really can't get any cheaper than him. Same thing here for Niang, drafted in 2020, I think, out of Texas Christian, at tackle. Ironically enough, most of these guys here, aside from these 2 guys at guard, most of these guys here are the tackle spots that you have locked up. So if you want to leave tackle alone this season, you can. You've got 2 starters here, and then you've got Rankin and Niang. And with Niang, at least you hope, because he was a COVID opt-out in 2020, we still haven't seen him. You hope at least with Niang that you have a guy who can get better and maybe eventually take over one of the tackle spots. And if he can be good as a starter while he's still in his rookie contract, then you can say goodbye to one of these large cap numbers here at left or right tackle. Now, listen, as a fan, we don't want to do that. You know, I love Fisher, I love Schwartz. Man, we've been through 2 Super Bowls, 1 Super Bowl win, 3 AFC championship games. Now we've been through the lows and the highs with these guys, so nobody ever wants to let these people go. But if you're looking at it from a business standpoint, and especially a standpoint of I want to win in 2021, 22, 23, you start to look at where can we start cutting cost, and it's right here at tackle. And Niang would be the key to that. If he steps up in 2021, if he gets some playing time and he shows that he can play, then in 2022, you might conceivably see one of these 2 guys not come back in a Kansas City uniform. And that might not be because they're playing bad. It might just simply be because of money. So there's a lot going on there. I'm not predicting anything. I'm not saying anything is or isn't going to happen, but that's what you have in the works right there. After that, Austin Wright. And the Writer's an interesting thing. All of these guys here are now free agents. 5 of them are normal free agents, and the guy at the bottom, who I'll get to last, is a restricted free agent. All of these guys here are free agents. These guys here, at least contractually, can already come back in 2021 if you want them to come back. Writer is the first free agent at center. He played an excellent center this year. As a matter of fact, he's probably played his way off the team. I think with Writer, because he is an unrestricted free agent, I think he's going to make more in free agency than Kansas City is going to want to pay him, even if they didn't have any budget concerns. And they do. They have a tight budget. They have a lot of things to sift through, and they'll do it. They'll work their way through it, and we'll do it with them here in the off season. But the first question you have here is Austin Writer. Would we love to have him come back? The answer is yes. At what price? That's kind of up to Kansas City and how much they want to pay. Now, what you can't predict is what 31 other general managers are going to think about Writer, and how much money 2 or 3 of them are going to want to throw at him during this offseason. And I think, and again, I haven't sat down and crunched all these numbers, and I can't predict stupid or crazy, but I think that you're going to see Writer get more than Kansas City can actually make. Pay him in 2021. So my prediction is that Writer is probably gone, although we don't know that for sure. Kansas City may decide that they actually want him back and they're willing to pay the price for it. He's going to make a lot more money in the next 2 or 3 seasons, I think, in free agency than he's made the past couple of seasons for Kansas City. So I think he's going to be gone at center. He is a free agent. Mike Remmers is a guy that I absolutely love. I said it last offseason when Kansas City brought him in. Man, he played all over the offensive line. Super Bowl notwithstanding, that was a disaster. That was bizarre. Mike Remmers stepped in and was huge all year long and played different positions. He's tough. He's smart. And the key is he still looks like he has that flexibility, the agility that it takes to compete at the offensive line spots in the NFL. So I would love to see Remmers come back. He made about $1 million last year. I can't remember. I think it was a little bit less than that. Maybe it was $850,000. If you can get him back for the same price, I would love to have Remmers back, even if he doesn't start. Man, he is just the best backup in the world. He can step in at tackle. He can step in at guard if he needs to. Absolutely, this is just a power 6 kind of a backup right here with Remmers. Would absolutely love to have him come back. I would not want to, because of his age and how much tread is on his tires, I would not want to have him come back as the starter for next season. But I would really love to have him back as a backup for 2021 if he's willing to come back at that same price. And again, at these price levels, when you start to get $1 million or less, you really can't get anybody any cheaper. So these aren't financial decisions once you get past about right here. Other than Writer, because you can't get a guy for much cheaper than $1 million, $900,000. Your choice really is, do I want somebody like Remmers coming back, or do I want somebody who's a 5th or 6th round draft pick coming back and providing my depth, or do I want an undrafted free agent? Even those guys are in the $750,000 ballpark, so you're really not saving anything. It's not a financial decision with Remmers. The question is, do I want him back, and will he come back at that price? And for me, the answer is yes. So I would love to have Remmers back if he will come back. Wisniewski, here's another guy that I talked about. Players, they're not machines. 1 year is good, 1 year is not. In 2019, Wisniewski absolutely saved us all the way through the Super Bowl because he stepped in at the guard position, and he was tough. and he was smart, and he was tremendous. And then in 2020, he started off for Pittsburgh, and he moved. They let him go, and he came over to Kansas City about the midpoint of the season, and he just wasn't the same guy. Okay, maybe that's an age thing, I don't know, but Wisniewski just was not the same football player performance-wise. Listen, I'm sure he feels the same, I'm sure he thinks the same, but performance-wise, he was not the same player in 2020 that he was in 2019. 2019, Wisniewski was excellent. He was tremendous. In 2020, he just wasn't. He wasn't for Pittsburgh. He wasn't for Kansas City. Did he contribute? Yes. Was it nice to have him on the team? Yes. Do we want him back for 21? I'm not sure, and we'll see what Kansas City does with that. I figure they're probably not going to bring him back, and personally, I think I would make the decision to probably move on to somebody who is younger, and that's where you start to split hairs and you start to draw a line. With Rimmers, the answer is yes. I still see the performance there. I definitely want him back. With Wisniewski, for me personally, the answer is I don't think I want him back for 2021. But I still absolutely love what he did for us in 2019 as a Kansas City organization. Okay, Kilgore, Daniel Kilgore, another veteran guy who's been played for a very long time. Kilgore, for about 4 games, I think it was, contributed, and he was so important at that center spot this year for 4 games. He stepped in, he was tough, he was smart. Personally, I would like to have Kilgore come back. I think he made, and I forget, it was around $1 million, maybe minus 100,000. So you can't really get any cheaper than Kilgore. I think I would love to have Kilgore come back at that center spot. Not everybody, just, there's a lot of offensive linemen who can move around and play tackle and guard. Not a lot of them can shift over to center and be good. So it's nice to have the guy at backup center that can get the job done at least for a month, maybe 2 months. Would I want Kilgore as a starter? Absolutely no way. But would I be okay with him playing for 4 weeks or maybe 2 months if somebody got injured? The answer is yes. So right here at center, especially knowing that Wright is probably gone at center and I'm hunting for another starter right here, I definitely want Kilgore back if I can get him to come back for me and be backup center for $900,000, $850,000, something like that. I can't get one any cheaper. The only question is, can I get one who's better at the same price? Probably not. I probably don't want to use a draft pick on that. I'm going to be more looking at draft picks at other places. So for me, the answer is bring Kilgore back right here at backup center, and I like what I've got right there. Osemele is a guy, I have so much respect for Osemele as a player. Watched him for years and years and years. One of the best for years. One of the absolute best offensive linemen in all of football. Tough, smart, quick, tough, strong, brutal. I mean, the guy is just a beast. But we have not seen that version of Osemele now for 3 seasons. We didn't see it in 2020 before he got injured with the Chiefs. We didn't see it in 2019. We didn't see it in 2018. It's been probably 3 seasons since we've seen that version of Osemele, and I don't think we're ever going to see it again. Now, before he got injured, I think it was week 7 that he got injured for Kansas City. Before he got hurt, he was still tough. He was still strong. He was still battling and competing, and he was still smart. But what he wasn't was fast or quick or agile. He looked, in all honesty, a little slow and a little stiff. And I think that's why you saw him struggle at times. Yes, there are times he can still put a guy on the ground. Yes, he's still fighting. Yes, he's still contributing. Yes, it was nice to have him on the team for that first part of the season before he got hurt. But in all honesty, Allegretti, what we saw from Allegretti for 9, 10, 11 weeks was a lot better, a lot more consistent than what we saw from Osemele production-wise in the first 5 or 6 weeks. I think there's still place for Osemele in this league if he wants to come back. But I'm not sure if I'm a Kansas City guy. When I'm already looking at bringing back Kilgore and I'm already looking at bringing back Rimmers, I don't think I want to put Osemele on the roster for next season, even at a cheap price of $750,000, $800,000, $900,000. So for me personally, I would let Osemele go. I just don't think we're going to see what we want to see out of him moving forward, and I assume that's because of age at this point. You end up here with Wiley. I left Wiley for last, not because he's the most important, but because he's kind of a Pandora's box here. He's a restricted free agent, and I'm not going to go deep into that. But basically, the point is this. He can negotiate with other teams. Kansas City can choose to match an offer that he gets from other teams, but they may or may not receive a draft pick back if Wiley goes to the other team. And so that's a lot going on there, and it's very confusing. It all depends on what designation, what tender Kansas City puts on him, and then it depends on what Wiley does after that, and it depends on what other team offers him money, and then it depends on whether or not Kansas City wants to match that. So there's a lot going on there. At the end of the day, if with Kansas City having all of the budget concerns that they have, and they've got a lot, they'll work their way through it. They'll have a good season. It will all work out to some degree. But with all that going on, how important is Wiley going to be for them here? Do they view him as the starter at guard coming back? You're already paying the doctor here at guard $5 million. What do you think other teams are going to try to offer Wiley to come and start at guard for them? I'm certain that there are several other teams out there who will view Wiley as an upgrade at guard for them, and they wouldn't be wrong. So I don't think, and it could go either way really here. There's a lot going on with Wiley because he's a restricted free agent. Next year, if he were to hit the if he were to only get a one-year deal this year in 2022, he would be an unrestricted free agent. But what is going to happen with Wiley? It could go either way. My prediction is that Wiley is probably going to be too expensive for Kansas City this year when you consider that they are looking for ways to cut costs. So it's really going to come down to, does Kansas City want to restructure some of their other contracts to get the money to sign Austin Wiley? And that's not in a vacuum. Don't forget, they've got several other decisions at several other positions all over the team. They've got these same decisions in the secondary. They've got a little bit of this at linebacker. They've got this at the wide receiver spot. They've got it all over the team. And so this isn't the only guy that they've got to make a decision on. So there's a lot going on here. They can have him back if they want him back. They can absolutely have him back. It's just a matter of paying the price and then restructuring, because they are so tight. They're going to have to restructure whatever that price is out of somebody else's contract, which means they put a heavier burden on 2022 or 2023. It could go either way here. I personally feel like Wiley may be gone, but we'll see. Kansas City may want him bad enough to just pay that price, whatever other teams are offering, and that may be the end of it. So you might get him back as cheap as $2 or $3 million for one season. Or you may start to see other teams start to offer $5, $6, $7 million for Wiley, and at that point I figure Kansas City is probably out. And certainly, listen, we've seen crazy things going on. I don't think Wiley's going to rack up $9 or $10 million. I don't think so. But again, I can't predict crazy or stupid. So certainly at that point, Kansas City would be long past any kind of willingness to pay him to come back for next season. So that's what's going on with the offensive line. If you want it, and I'll do a little bit of summary here, if you want it, you can have 4 starters basically penciled in, and that's these 4 guys right here. Doc and Allegretti at the guard spots, Schwartz and Fisher. They each have questions. How good is the doctor going to be? Can Allegretti repeat his 20 performance? Are Schwartz and Fisher going to come back and be 100% completely recovered from those injuries and look as good as they looked before? Yes, there are questions, but if you want it, you've got those 4 guys, and then you just have to figure out your starting center, what you're going to do at center. And that could be pay Wright or the money, or that could be let him go and put somebody else in. So we'll see with Ryder and with Wiley just exactly what the Kansas City Chiefs think about those 2 guys. And it may be that Kansas City opts to give him the money. They didn't do that with center before, 2 or 3 seasons ago, but we'll see what happens right there. And then, of course, you've got several guys here in the backup spot with Niang, and then with Rimmers and Kilgore, if they decide to bring those guys back, those are valuable backups that you can have, I think, very cheaply if you want to have them back. I have been banging like a monkey on a pair of cymbals for Kansas City to invest some draft picks at that interior guard spot. I want to close with this, though. Kansas City was so good at offensive line this year until you got to the Super Bowl. They were good all season long. They just did tremendous. So if Andy Heck and Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid can keep training and developing guys that are undrafted free agents and seventh round draft picks, and then mix it in with veterans like Kilgore and Rimmers, then maybe they don't need to draft anybody at all here. Just keep hodgepodging it there in the middle. They had an excellent season. I give them every bit of credit for that, for continuing to develop that interior offensive line when they really aren't spending any draft picks at all on the interior offensive line. Again, financially, I think it would be a good idea to go ahead and do that, but we'll see what they do in this offseason. All right, that's enough. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Have a great one. Goodbye.